Welcome to @Cronkite News, your social sharing connection where you choose the news. Facebook likes and shares, tweets, retweets, and favorites. YouTube views and subscriptions. We're watching you watch us. From our digital home at cronkitenews.azpbs.org to your television, web browser, or mobile device. Let's get a refresh on the top Arizona news of the week.
Today, Pat Tillman would have turned 41 years old. The football icon turned serviceman leaves a strong legacy after dying in Afghanistan 13 years ago.
Reporter Ryan Curry checked in with some of the people who knew Pat Tillman best.
To Jake Plummer, Pat Tillman was far more than a teammate on the 1996 Arizona State football team that went undefeated in the regular season and made it to a Rose Bowl.
Once you became a friend with him, you realized how much of a good friend he was. He was always there for you. He's always challenging you to be a better person, a better human, a better man. And then on from here to the Cardinals and playing in the pros, you know, just a guy who was an exceptional character that didn't just talk about it, but really lived the lifestyle.
Plummer said Tillman was dedicated to success and a friend with everyone he met, including Doug Tamero, the assistant media relations director for Sun Devil Athletics.
The first thing that you noticed about Pat is his hair, and then he was loud. You know, when he talked, when he joked around in a dining hall up at camp, in his interviews, you know, he had no filter. But that was the main thing. And then that he was smart. Just in talking to him, you could tell the guy was on another level.
Is to Brown, and he's thrown for a loss by Pat Tillman.
Following his tenure as a Sun Devil, Tillman advanced to the NFL but remained in the Valley, playing 4 seasons with the Arizona Cardinals. But following the 9/11 attacks, he cut his professional career short to serve his country in Iraq. He remained connected with friends and family while in the military, including Perry Ettinger, a former athletic trainer at ASU who helped Tillman through shoulder surgery when he was a freshman.
He had qualities I thought that were really outstanding. Dedication to whatever he was doing, to moral attitude about things. He really stood up for things. He read a lot and knew a lot, and he could talk to you about just about anything. And he wanted to be really good, you know, and so you just really felt he would be.
He checked on me prior to his last employment. That's the kind of friend he was. I should have been checking on him, but he was calling me to see how I was doing. So that says a lot about the guy, and I'm just one of many, many people who've been influenced that way by his friendship.
Although Pat Tillman died in 2004, he is still the most popular person here at Sun Devil Stadium. His number 42 is on nearly every wall, and fans still wear the number 42 jersey on game day. Players have started a new tradition of walking out of Tillman Tunnel behind me and placing their hands on the new Tillman statue before they take the field on game day.
You know, him, I think he'd be a little upset that there's a statue of him because he didn't like a lot of the accolades. He loved to be cheered and encouraged and feel that energy, but you know, I don't know if he would really love all the attention he's getting, but hey, what better person to focus on and tell your children about if you want to talk about what he did between the time he was born and the time he left us. You know, the guy accomplished a whole lot of stuff.
Who would like a statue of himself? Not too many. Pat, I know, would appreciate and understand all the good that's come out of this 14 years later. You don't think of Arizona State without thinking of Pat Tillman. You know, you don't think of 42 and not think of Pat Tillman. And that was kind of the goal when we started, is we just didn't want people to ever forget all that he meant to us, because before he was USA, he was ASU.
Following Tillman's death in 2004, the Pat Tillman Foundation approached Tamero and Ettinger, asking them to help think of ways to honor their friend. They planned a 4.2-mile run in memory of his number 42 that was only projected to get 800 participants. Now the event maxes out at 28,000 runners.
It's the power of Pat. I mean, you really have to think about this. How many people, if the starting point is when you pass away, how many people have made the impact that Pat Tillman has made?
Throws and it's intercepted. This is Pat Tillman.
For many people, Pat Tillman was more than a soldier and football player. He was a man who was with and for others. The run and the statue are ways for people who didn't know him to also be inspired by his legacy. On the back of the statue, there's a plaque that reads, "May Pat Tillman's courage, both on the field and while serving his country, be an inspiration to all."
I'm always thankful and I feel blessed that I got to know Pat Tillman. I'm also thankful and blessed that it was the era that it was.
I looked back and reflected, and I was like, I hope he thought of me with that, It was because all these people were so good and so strong, and his friend. And I was also his friend, and I just want to be part of that.
Visitors have been leaving mementos at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington almost since the day it was dedicated in 1982. Those items now number more than 250,000. But unlike any other memorial in Washington, these items are carefully preserved. Washington reporter Bailey Vogt explains.
On a cold November morning at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, Howie Howe comes to see his two foster brothers' names on the memorial wall and to leave photos in memory of one.
One of him and one of us at the last reunion when there were 4 of us still above the ground. Now we're down to 3.
Visitors like Howe leave items at the wall every day to honor a loved one whose name is here among the fallen from that war.
I think a lot of people are, really come here and they leave what's heartfelt, and I think that would be a comfort to them to know that it wasn't just dumped in the dumpster someplace.
Well, those items might not stay there forever. They're not going to be destroyed either. Instead, they're going to be taken to a facility in Maryland where they'll be cataloged for historical purposes. The items are brought to this National Park Service warehouse in Landover, Maryland. Museum curator Jan Fulkerts oversees the cataloging and preservation of the estimated 200 to 250,000 items.
This is a secure and environmentally controlled facility, and we keep the items that are left at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in storage here.
Those items come from all over the map in more ways than one. From Arizona alone, Fulkerts shows items ranging from an APH-5 flight helmet to postcards, from hats to stuffed animals. Fulkerts says that the main focus of the collection is to keep a record of the stories that the Vietnam War created, no matter how incomplete they are.
What we get is what we get, but we get so many different stories and so many different things that it really tells so much of what happened in Vietnam and what's happening since, and why the memorial is important to different people.
Howe agrees, saying that he appreciates what leaving an item at the wall allows for those who lost loved ones during the war.
People leave things that they don't necessarily be understood by others, but they're significant to them for whatever reason.
On the National Mall, Bailey Vogt, Cronkite News.
Our Cronkite News team is investigating the numbers and digging into the gun sales and federal background checks in our state. Reporter Jasmine Spearing-Bowen joins us now in the broadcast center.
No permits are required to purchase or own a firearm in Arizona. And although background checks are required to buy a gun from a federally licensed dealer, no such checks are required for person-to-person sales. Every mass shooting, from Sutherland Springs in Texas this week to Newtown, Connecticut 5 years ago, brings the same calls for stricter gun regulations.
The most severely injured that we got were 3 children that we took to the operating room immediately, and 1 adult, and all had multiple gunshot wounds.
In the blink of an eye, your whole life can change. Here it is, 26 little kids gone.
Arizona has some of the least restrictive gun laws in the country, with no permit required to own a gun and background checks only required for guns bought from federally licensed dealers, not through private sales. State Representative Randy Freese is a trauma surgeon and worked on Representative Gabby Giffords after the 2011 shooting in Tucson. He has introduced several firearm safety bills, including one for comprehensive background checks on all gun sales, but none have passed.
About 40% or so purchases in Arizona of weapons is done without a background check through personal, person-to-person sales, things like that, or even at gun shows where if you're not a federally licensed dealer, you're not required to do the background check.
Federally licensed dealers are required to run background checks through the National Instant Criminal Background Check System on anyone purchasing a firearm since 1998. More than 111 million background checks were performed nationally through 2016 by the FBI. 1.3 million of those were denied, according to a 2016 FBI report. Charles Heller is part of the Arizona Citizens Defense League, which works to strengthen Second Amendment rights through legislation.
Generally speaking, it's a lot easier for most people to own a firearm than most people in the country who don't own firearms think it is. And the vast majority of them are law-abiding.
Heller said the recent mass shooting in Las Vegas proves that background checks don't prevent crimes.
If you look at all the major mass shootings, the criminals either bypassed the background check or passed it before they committed the crimes.
Freese said he will continue to push for new gun safety measures.
Sitting back and saying we can't do anything about it is not acceptable. It's simply not acceptable when people are dying.
There is no way for Arizonans to really know how many guns are in the state because there is no requirement to disclose certain sales. Freese estimates that 40% of gun sales in Arizona are never recorded. For our full multimedia investigative report on Arizona's gun sales and statistics, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org. Jasmine Spearing-Bowen, Cronkite News.
Meanwhile, 5 Arizona schools are among 342 getting recognition as some of the best in the country. Washington Bureau reporter Fraser Allen Best attended the National Blue Ribbon ceremony put on by the U.S. Department of Education.
Seats were filled with mostly principals, administrators, and teachers, but Jason Phillips, principal of Arizona College Prep, says the thanks at his Chandler School goes to an even wider group.
We have parents that greatly support our program and teachers who are extremely dedicated to what they do every day. And we have students who really want to advance and get the best out of their education.
Education Secretary Betsy DeVos started the program with praise for the winners before the school's representatives filed across the stage. Arizona had 5 winning schools at the elementary, middle, and high school level. Jennifer Benjamin, the principal of Palm Valley Elementary School in Goodyear, says she gained a lot just being among other top educators.
Just get ideas and experiences from other places around the nation.
Phillips had a similar experience and said the lessons learned here will help in a state where schools can face funding challenges.
You know, with the state finances, we have to do more. With, I don't know how else to say it, sometimes less, but I think with the quality teachers we have and the parents and the students, we always rise above.
In Washington, Fraser Allen Best, Cronkite News.
In addition to Palm Valley and Arizona College Prep, other state Blue Ribbon schools were Acacia Elementary in Vail, Franklin at Brimhall Elementary in Mesa, and Seton Catholic Preparatory in Chandler.
Arizona State University has just finished phase 2 of renovations to the Memorial Union building, and some of those renovations were included to help people practice their faith. Cronkite News reporter Blakely McHugh gives us a tour.
ASU's Memorial Union has updated its dining, entertainment, and study areas with more open space, new pool tables, and better accessibility. But the thousands of students who utilize the Tempe Union every day may not notice recent renovations added a place for students to practice their religious beliefs. It's called the Interfaith Reflection Room, and right next to it are ablution rooms.
Muslims, before they pray, they have to make wudu, so ablution, ritualistic purification. So that's basically performing like a cleanse of your body before you pray.
Wudu involves cleansing the body, including the head, face, hands, arms, and feet. The university included the rooms in the $10 million renovations to ensure that students felt included on campus.
ASU is a very inclusive university, and so we've got a lot of faiths represented across the student body. And so I think it's important to recognize that and to be sensitive to that and appreciate their desires.
Students from the Muslim Student Association here at ASU say rooms like these make them feel valued on university campuses. According to Pew Research Center, people who identify themselves as Muslims make up about 1% of Arizona's population.
ASU is like recognizing the fact that, you know, there's Muslim students on campus and they need a place like this, and that makes you feel important. That makes you feel like, oh, they care. They actually notice that we need a place to pray and a place to, you know, make wudu.
Student Malij Zara says it's the key attention to detail, from the signs down to the shoe cubbies, that make this place special. In Tempe, Blakely McHugh, Cronkite News.
According to Neville, only a handful of universities across the U.S. have rooms equipped for Muslim prayer. Volunteers drove trucks into the desert and hauled out loads of trash in the 8th annual cleanup of Tonto National Forest. Cronkite News reporter Tatum Hubble shows us how the volunteers work to maintain Arizona's natural beauty in the Four Peaks area.
Every November, volunteers spread out across Tonto National Forest on a mission to collect tons of trash. They find everything from furniture to hundreds of bullet shells.
When we first started this cleanup, we started with a simple compactor truck, and we loaded that up in no time. And then in subsequent years, we went to 2 40-yard roll-off dumpsters, and now we're filling 4 40-yard roll-off dumpsters every year. Last year, we hauled out 27,000 pounds of garbage. The year before that, in 2015, it was 47,000.
Members of the Copper State Four-Wheelers Club organized the Four Peaks cleanup. They hope the amount of trash collected will continue to decline.
Take back what you bring out. Don't leave any trash you shoot up. Make sure you take it back with you. You know, the ultimate goal would be to put the Copper State Four-Wheelers out of a job where they don't have to pick up 40,000 tons of trash every year.
Four Peaks Cleanup is dedicated to preserving Tonto National Forest and preventing the amount of trash being discarded in Arizona's desert. According to the U.S. Forest Service, nearly 6 million people visit the forest every year for recreational activities, like target shooting, hiking, and horseback riding.
It's very important we come every year to clean this up, because if we leave this trash here, they're eventually going to close this place.
Forest advocates urge visitors to act responsibly and take out their trash. In Tonto National Forest, Tatum Hubble, Cronkite News.
Starting November 20th, people who bring inappropriate shooting targets like propane tanks into Tonto National Forest may be fined up to $5,000.
A growing herd of bison near the Grand Canyon is threatening some of its fragile ecosystem.
Arizona PBS and Cronkite News reporter Drew Marine were granted exclusive access to the area where the herd roams to learn about plans to thin out the population.
Bison were brought to the Grand Canyon in the early 1900s to a wildlife viewing area, but when they weren't useful, they were left to roam. Those 100 animals now number 400 to 600, and they're wiping out everything in their path.
Some 200 miles from the south rim of the Grand Canyon, a trek through a thick forest of fallen trees and muddy trails with biologist Brandon Holton leads to a landscape of meadows devoid of vegetation and depleted of water sources.
Out here, you just have, our meadows are just overgrazed to the point where, you know, our grass is this high.
Overgrazed by these behemoths. Up to 1,400-pound bison grazing to ensure their own survival, but at the same time threatening the future of other wildlife inside the Kaibab National Forest.
This area used to be covered in plants and had plenty of running water, but because of the bison's impact, it's more of a mud hole. And now it's affecting animals like deer and bats.
And when they come here, they can't access this water. They need, you know, ponded type water in order to drink, in order to come down and glean the water surface and drink. Here, we don't have that condition anymore.
So the National Park Service is planning to recruit gun-toting volunteers to help cull the herd from about 600 to 200, rather than watch the number of bison triple in size over the next 10 years.
I'm a little bit upset that there was this decision to only plan for the shorter term.
Conservationists are disheartened that hunting is the first option being deployed.
I would hate to see the Kaibab National Forest and Grand Canyon National Park turned into a game farm for this species.
Gitlin, like many others against the culling, insists there are other solutions.
The park is capable of getting these animals rounded up and getting them contained and transported in a humane manner. And I would like to see that be the primary mechanism of moving these animals.
That's sort of a struggle that the National Park Service has, I would say, is how best to manage all resources within the park. One resource being the bison, one resource being water, one resource being vegetation.
While the culling hasn't happened quite yet, the federal government is hoping to reduce the number of bison as soon as possible and see some positive results in the park.
Right now we're focusing on the short term, but we will continue to look long term as well as we study what happens with this initial herd reduction.
In the meantime, these bison will continue to leave their mark on the area.
Yeah, we just picked up the bison trail right through here and then got to this point and spooked a small herd right through the woods here.
This herd can call the North Rim their home for now, roaming the forests and meadows until the end of the year.
The Park Service is considering whether some of the bison will be captured and moved to other parks or Indian communities that agree to take them. But the reduction program is expected to start early next year. Drew Marine, Cronkite News.
From rotary to wall-mounted to even the old Mickey Mouse phone, you can find all of those relics to the past in a new place. Cronkite News reporter Inkirka Marnier went to a museum that displays the phone's humble beginnings.
What was your favorite one?
The hamburger phone.
Why is that?
Because I love hamburgers.
Visitors walking through the Telephone Museum in Phoenix can pick their own favorite from the dozens of phones of the past century.
Put a quarter in, you get a bomb.
Joe Hersey spent decades working in the telephone industry and is a part of the Telephone Pioneers, a nonprofit organization that has similar telephone museums in places like Denver, Albuquerque, and right here in Arizona. But last year, the future of these museums was unsure when their sponsor CenturyLink decided to cut the cord.
In the business sense, we are not a profit maker. We do not make money.
CenturyLink provided a space for telephone museums to display the phones, but without the support, a few of the museums had to close.
I didn't want to throw it all in a dumpster, because that's where this whole thing was headed if we didn't find a home for it.
Hersey and his team moved to the Pioneer Living History Museum in Phoenix, where they regularly host class tours.
The majority of them that come in are very excited. There's a lot of hands-on displays that we use, so the kids are they seem interested in it.
I like that you could see how phones have changed over time. It was nice to see how they worked and not just like, here's the phone, move on.
While the kids say it's a cool place, Hersey says there's a lot more to it than that.
Well, it's part of our history, and it shows what we have built on to give your generation what you have today.
Arizona celebrated its rich sports tradition last night by immortalizing 5 people in the state's Sports Hall of Fame. Cronkite News reporter Andy Krause was in Paradise Valley to cover the groundbreaking event.
Coyotes legend Shane Doan, Suns great Dan Marley, Cardinals owner Bill Bidwell, longtime Arizona Republic columnist Paula Bovin, and NCAA wrestling champion and former ASU Sun Devil Anthony Robles were all enshrined in the Hall's 47th class.
This is a dream come true for me to be honored by my home state and be inducted in the Hall of Fame. And I'm just going to celebrate it with my loved ones and really the people who helped me get here. You know, my family and my coaches, they're all here.
To the Coyotes, I wouldn't be here if you guys hadn't given me a chance. And for you guys to get a table and come tonight, you're kind of the extended family that I'm with all the time.
Being around good people makes you better. And that's the way the Suns organization was.
Bovin, who now helps lead the Phoenix Sports Bureau of Cronkite News, encouraged young girls in her induction speech to get involved in sports, highlighting their ability to empower.
The best thing about sports is that it gives females ideas about a great body image. They learn a lot of weird things from the media today about what a good body image is. Athletics makes them strong, it makes them powerful, and it teaches them that you don't have to be in a bikini to be on a sports magazine cover.
It was also a night of firsts for the Hall. Bovin was the first female journalist inducted, and Doan was the first hockey player to be recognized. In Paradise Valley, Andy Krause, Cronkite News.
Now, here's an @Cronkite News Pick of the Week, a favorite from the Cronkite News staff.
A Valley man who is living on the streets this morning will soon be moving into his very own home thanks to Project Connect. Reporter Emily Richardson takes us through the one-day outreach event that gives homeless and near-homeless individuals access to services.
Get housing, I hope I get that now to get where I'm going to be, so that's my really big thing right now.
Charlie Noon is one of the more than 2,000 people in Maricopa County who are currently unsheltered.
We could possibly get you into a place.
Project Connect includes services such as housing connections, places to shower, get clothes and haircuts, as well as providers who help them get new identification. While Noon and his helping volunteer, Gina Amoroso, waited to hear about his housing, Noon got his vision tested, went to the MVD for a new license, DES to get food stamps, and got his haircut.
It'd be awesome to get into a place to be home. Yeah. Someone can come just like them.
Get my own bed and everything. I don't have to worry about it.
Amoroso volunteers here because Project Connect found her housing 2 years ago when she was pregnant, and she considers these people her family.
I didn't think you would miss being on the streets, but you gain a family when you are on the streets. And that family never goes away. So when I come to Project Connect, it's almost like I'm home in a way.
And right before lunch, Noon found out that he would have a place to live tonight.
I don't have to be on the street no more.
Noon is now one of the more than 13,000 individuals that have been helped by Project Connect. In Phoenix, Emily Richardson, Cronkite News.
Cronkite News tracks your likes, tweets, and shares from all our social sites to bring you this special at Cronkite News, our weekly refresh. Join the conversation so you choose the news. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, and log on to cronkitenews.azpbs.org for top Arizona stories anytime.